Me, who's it here? Maybe I'm not. Do this every time. Hello, everybody. Hang on. There. Hi, everybody. I'm early. I'm Abby Haggard, and I'm early. And I'm Abby Haggard, and I'm early in my fabulous office on a really weird weather day. What time is it now? Where are we here? 9:59. Okay. So, if you are joining me for the very first time because somebody said, no, seriously, you got to check this out, or no, don't check it out. Um, I'm an ordinary, everyday, um, alive and well Canadian, with a military brat background and Viking ancestry, and a determination to just keep walking here because so far it's working. There are ups and downs, but it's working. And my claim to fame, if you want to call it that, where is it? Is that I was on a television show. I was on a television show with a lousy sense of direction. I was on a television show called You Can't Do That on Television. I was also involved in a lot of animation work, Care Bears and whatnot. And it was a kind of a window of time in Ottawa, Canada, in the mid 1980s, when all of a sudden there was a lot of work happening in our little tiny town. And nobody thought You Can't Do That on Television would become anything. And then, surprise, it was picked up, licensed to broadcast by a fledgling company at the time called Nickelodeon. And what they did was they sublicensed it to be broadcast on the US Armed Forces Network worldwide. If you're not a military person, you might not know what that means, but as a military kid, oh my goodness, good morning, Freddie. So from a standing start in a fairly small town in a backwater area of above the US border, all of a sudden we were a global phenomenon before that was even a concept. We were viral before that was ever considered trending now. We are that we are the origin of viral, I think. And as a military kid, global before it was known, live everywhere, like the dandelion thistle, and we disperse, and when we land, we thrive, we prosper, because it's how we were born, it's how we were raised, it's how we learn to grow. And the interesting thing about trends and the interesting thing about conversations is that the more we connect with people who are just outside our little tiny pond, the more we come into contact with them, and we say, which part of the toothpaste tube do you squeeze at your house? We start to learn that there's more than one way things get done. And it gives us an opportunity to see through different sets of eyes, if we're willing to say, so, of course, we were here first. Oh, wait, we weren't? Oh, really? Well, who was here first? We get to discover more. We get to learn more. We get to recognize cause and effect more just by getting to know things that are just beyond our immediate knowledge, just pushing the envelope a little bit. So it certainly pushed my envelope when I realized that I had chosen that costume, because I said to myself, how ridiculously 1950s housewife can I look? And I nailed it. And I didn't think it would matter, because, small backward, small town, middle of nowhere, who's going to see it? Yes. Well, I'm still talking about it today, aren't I? And you know what I'm talking about, so that would be the answer. So I had started to do these videos, back to the reason to say hello, and here I am. And if you're just joining me, I started to do these videos as part of a process, as part of a kind of I'm going to say it's an alternate learning curve. It's an alternate way to get gooder at the good stuff we're good at, and to get stronger at understanding and coping with the surprises that kind of take us out at the knees. And you know when you fall and you land whoa, and all your breath goes out of you. Yeah, sometimes life does that to us. And I, as a military kid, I have some techniques, I have some tactics, I have some processes that work, that get us over those cracks in the sidewalk, that get us over the the intermediate moments when what I have those. So I decided a few years ago, when the pandemic came along, and I saw that people weren't handling it well. They weren't coping with uncertainty well. I had not really thought about it then, because uncertainty is my life. It hadn't occurred to me that it wasn't everyone's life until I saw the effect of prolonged uncertainty on a lot of people who didn't see it coming, didn't have the tools to jump over or work around the surprises. I saw what it was doing, and I thought, well, I can help that. I can fix that. I here, hang on a minute. Here, try that. And I thought, I'm going to make a little program. I'm going to make a thing work in a way that it's easy for you to feel, hey, somebody gets me. And the person who gets me actually might have a quick fix for this. I might have to do some work, but it's better than having none. And so that's how it began. And I call it Pivotry in Motion because I think it's a really cool name. And good morning, Paul. How nice to see you. I snuck in early on everybody. So um, I I call this concept Pivotry. It doesn't really matter why. It's like if you wanted to buy a hot tub, do you care how it works? You just want it to work. So Pivotry, the idea behind Pivotry, all the details aside, you have to change your mind before you can change your direction. You have to decide it's a good idea. I have this saying, and every time I say it to somebody, they say, you know what, you're right. Here's my saying: change is only hard when we didn't think of it. When we wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, I think I'm going to dye my hair green tomorrow, we think it's a great idea. If somebody had said tomorrow you're going to dye your hair green, we'd say, I'm not going to do that. That change wasn't my idea. This change is my idea. So Pivotry is taking ownership of a different way of thinking. This didn't work. It still didn't work. The definition of expecting a different result by doing the same thing. Oh, yeah. So if it's not working and it's still not working, let's look for plan B and C. That's what Pivotry is. Change this, alter this, shift this. Oh, how long has that been there? And the rest can follow. Not without effort, but it can follow. The instructions all of a sudden are there. So that's the backstory. It's why I'm here. It's why I'm doing these videos twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursday mornings at 10 o'clock, Abbey time, which is New York City time. I call it Shoes Day because I like shoes, can you tell? And I call it Thor's Day because I have Viking ancestry. So I am so glad you're joining me. I'm so glad you keep coming back. Freddie, you're one of my staunch originals, and I am so grateful to you. Paul, I love your insights and I love your contributions, and I'm so glad you've joined me. And for all the rest of you, you can comment if you like. You can send me messages if you like. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm seen on Facebook. I'm seen on YouTube, and I'm growing my ponds of influence, I hope, because it's a whole lot easier when you know how it works than when you don't and you can't find the instructions. That's what it's about. So, with all that aside, I hope you don't mind. 10:08. Cheers. I know, I do this every time. It's like it's brand new, amazing, right? Oh my God. So, a thing happened yesterday. we achieved some weather that is doing a darn fine job of being astonishing. I got to tell you. And I now my friends, Jeremy down in Tennessee, and a bunch of my buddies in the Midwest, up in Ohio and Illinois and all that stuff. Tornado watches. That's a fun time for Easter. all I wanted were eggs. I didn't really need all this other stuff. Thanks, Mother Nature. So what we got here was high winds and rain, and then the temperature dropped, and then we got freezing rain, and then it dropped even further, and now we're getting snow. And the thing is that we're getting snow sideways, which is always fascinating. When you walk into a room and you just kind of glance out the window, you can't see anything. You think, what is that? Fog? And then you walk forward and you realize it's precipitation, except it's not precipitating. It's on a mission. It's going to go over there and precipitate, presumably. It's very odd. And of course, a lot of people in this part of the world, we have snow tires for the winter. Yeah, some early adopters have already switched to their winter tires. And that, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, humans of all shapes and sizes, is the introduction to today's theme. And I know that doesn't make any sense, but it will in a minute. Today's theme is why getting slimed became a badge of honor. Now, I wrote this book a while back, and it's a fabulous book, if I do say myself. And there's a ton of pictures of my kids in it, all the people I interviewed, and a bunch of my colleagues in the industry. And I picture on the back of the book to see all the people that I interviewed. See, there they all are, all grown up now. There's Christine in the top corner, right? And who else have I got? Okay, Lisa's right there. What have I got here? Kevin Kubichewski's there, right? And what have I got here? Oh, this is Brenda, our director, and right in the middle there, the gray-haired eminence, that's Justin. So there's a bunch of them. It's a fabulous. Matthews at the bottom. Fabulous book. Why is it fabulous? It's fabulous because I got to sit down with my kids and my colleagues and talk about what was that? And we had the most amazing conversations because I was talking to grown people with lives, walking and doing and being. I had known when they were 12, when they were 10, when they were 15. I had known them when they walked through a doorway. Literally, they walked through the doorway of CJOH Studios, but metaphorically, they had walked through a doorway from civilian life, looking at fame. And when they walked through that doorway, they were on the inside. They were inside fame. Fame was their bubble. And it's a transition that we don't really realize until somebody says, "Oh my God, aren't you?" Now, it can be any layer of "oh my God, aren't you?" "Oh my God, aren't you Employee of the Month over at the Starbucks at the corner of Walk and Wade?" "Oh my God, you own the convenience store. I love the blah 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 you do." We take on a layer that is how people recognize us without really knowing us. They recognize us by what we do, not by who we are. And what happens in that fame transition is that we tend to fuse those two things. For a lot of us, what we do becomes who we are. And one of the things that I've been talking about a lot, because I think it really needs to be discussed, and I'm going to talk a lot more about, and I'm already developing workshops for, and they are just minor plug here, fabulous, interesting, intriguing, fun workshops that give you boy, it's an eye opener, and it's really helpful. And I'm not saying it because they're mine. I'm saying it because of the people who've taken them. What we don't realize is that without our conscious awareness, we have put on a hat, not a mask. We've put on a hat, and from a distance, people can see the hat. You see people walking around with a ball cap, and it has a team logo on it. We're wearing that because we identify with that team. We like their colors. We're a fan. And so when people see us and they see the hat, they already know something about us without talking. They say, "Hey," and then we see their hat. It's the same hat, and there we are. Didn't have to exchange a word. We're identifying with people like us who do things like us. Wearing that hat, representing whatever that is, becomes a portion of who we are and what we do. And in conversation, it also goes as far as why we do it. It doesn't go back to the backstory of why we do it, but it goes to the why we do it in the moment, Oh yeah, I like the way they're blah, blah, blah. He's a new guy, right? Blah, blah, blah. And so when that happens, we find ourselves forming a tribe of like-minded people. And I'm from several tribes, right? I'm a military kid. I'm an Air Force military kid. I have Viking ancestry. I'm Canadian. I'm a redhead. I'm in show business. Lots of tribes. Lots of tribes. And in each tribe, when I get together with people from those same tribes, we have a lot to talk about. We have a lot in common. And we know it immediately because of the badge of honor we wear, the hat, the uniform. Oh, earrings. Oh, shoes. You have no idea. And it astonishes me every day. You have no idea how many people that I have never personally met or spoken to either send me pictures of shoes or pictures of them standing in front of stores that have shoes in them. Why? Because it's our connection point. It's what we have in common. I get this. I got a message one day, quite a long time ago. Hi, Abby. My name is Thing. You don't know me. My wife and I are on vacation in something, Florida. And we were walking by this shoe store, and my wife said, "Oh, that Abby on Facebook would love those shoes. Take a picture. Let's send it to her." The subset of that, the funny other thing, was where they were in Florida. I had lived in Florida. How does that even happen? So the joy we feel, that little glimmer, that frisson is a great French word, frisson. It's a sparkle. It's a connecting sparkle. I belong there. I belong there. Ooh, one of the tribe. And why I think it's valuable to talk about that, to introduce this theme today, is because I have conversations with people about social media all the time. Social media is terrible. It's separating us. We're isolated. We're not really connecting anymore. Okay, if that's the way you're going to use it, sure. If you don't actually plug in the toaster, it's not actually going to toast the toast. If you don't read the instructions, you're going to have no idea how a vacuum cleaner works. So you need to kind of pay attention to what it's for and what it can do for you in order to get the best value. I have this thing, this phone, phone flamingo on it. This is the hood ornament that was made for me. It's a 3-inch flamingo, and it sat on the hood of my BMW. I have a phone. When I go to buy a phone today, somebody tells me all the things it can do. And I stand there and I listen to them. Most of the time, I have no idea what they're talking about. But I smile brightly and encouragingly, the way moms do. Yeah. Oh, yes, dear. Yeah. And then when they've kind of run down, they pause to take a breath to tell me the other number of pixels you can get with the foods on the Frabbits. I say, can I call people with it? And they say, what? I said, well, it's a telephone. It's a telephone. I want to be able to talk to people with it. Can I talk to people with it? The person selling it to me is, I don't know, 12. Yeah. You can text though. I appreciate that. Can I call people? Can you show me how I call people on it? Okay. Do you want to show you how the videos work? No. No, we'll get there. But first of all, I want to be able to talk to people. Can I talk to people? Yeah. Thank you. It's a phone. Then when I'm ready, tell me all the other stuff. Al Bundy could make a profit selling shoes too, Abby. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, human beings of all shapes and sizes, Freddie Moore. Oh dear, oh dear. You see why I love these videos. All right, enough blather-ish. The theme for today's video is why getting slimed is a badge of honor. Now, I don't normally talk about inside backstory stuff on the show. I probably should do more of it. I certainly can. And I don't mean gossip. I mean the how and the why and the what, because it's fun. It's fun to know. So I'm going to tell you the origin of slime. And I'm going to tell you what happened. And I'm going to tell you why it matters. All right? I think it deserves another sip of coffee first. Hang on a second. By the way, Paul, how's your day so far out of 10? Mine's an 11. Just saying. So here it is. Roger Price, the genius who came up with the concept of a world run by children with all the awareness that it was the adults who thought they were in charge and behaved as the roadblocks to the children's happiness because they were there first, they're taller, they can reach everything, and they're in charge. Roger's premise was that sometimes people get to be in charge simply by sticking around long enough. I've always said that if you do anything long enough, eventually you acquire respectability. And I was speaking about show business. The beauty of the show and his target audience was the child kind of ready for teenage years without knowing it, just at the moment, we're talking about the doorway that you walk through, just at the doorway of puberty. Some of them early, some of them late, all of them getting a sense that something fairly large was about to happen to them. Not sure what it was, no instruction booklet, and therefore massive uncertainty. A therapist colleague of mine, colleague and friend, calls it seminal trauma. It is turning point trauma. And turning point trauma, I'm just writing the turning point thing down because I hadn't, and it's very important. Turning point trauma is when what we knew is changing, and it's changing in front of us. We can see it changing, and we can't. It is what we knew. We can't go back to what we didn't know. You can't, once it's out of the envelope, you can't get it back in. You can't unknow things you've learned. You can only figure out how to manage them. And the feeling of uncertainty and the feeling of losing connection to things. You picture a little boat tied to the dock. It has a rudder. If you woke up and it was not your boat, you were not tied to the dock and your rudder was missing, it would be quite scary because you would have no way of navigating anything and you would have nothing to hang on to. And if it happened while you were asleep, when your head was turned and you didn't see it coming, it's it's turning point trauma. When you can see it coming, when you can see the sky changing and you can see a cloud line forming and coming toward you, you know, you can run as fast as you like, but those clouds are coming. It is a real moment in what do I do now? And we all have them. We all go through them. And so turning point trauma was the place Roger wanted to reassure kids that they would be okay, that they had others around them with them going through it, so they weren't going through it alone. And so they had people that they could look to and turn to and talk to. And because it was a television show, kids watching could identify with our kids so that they didn't feel alone, that it wasn't their solitary, I'm the only boat with no rudder and no tie to the dock. And so there's safety in numbers is comforting. It's still scary, but you're not isolated. So that was the premise for the show. And he had already produced a show very like it in England. And it was a huge success, huge, before the internet, huge. So when he was headhunted and brought to Canada to do something with children's programming, and he presented the idea, he presented it to the head office, and the head office guy said, well, you can't do that on television. No, that's crazy. And Roger said, well, I can. I have done it. It's a wild success. It is what I'm going to do. And that's what I'm going to call it. The show he'd had in England, where he'd done the same thing, and the head of things had said the same thing to him. But that person said, you must be joking. And that's what the show was called in England. So you can look it up. And he understood, Roger understood deeply how frightening it was, how unsettling it was. And he had a very, very deep, deep connection to that trauma himself. And he wanted comfort buffers in place. You can't minimize it. You can't erase it. It's going to happen. But if a storm is coming, Roger was providing shelter. Roger was providing a vehicle where we could get in out of that storm and hunker down together. And then, you got to go back out. Okay, 1, 2, 3, let's go. And feel less vulnerable, less scared. That's what the show was for. So, slime. Well, Roger had children of his own. And one of the things that used to drive him out of his mind, he would come into the show. Was when something happened. There are 6 children in this house. Something is broken. What happened? And he would get a chorus. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And so one day, because slime didn't exist in the show in England, this was a Canadian phenomenon, because the kids were old enough, right? They were old enough to be doing things. He said, I have a plan. Here's the plan. I'm going to devise a retribution when you don't own, when you don't take responsibility. We're going to find something disgusting, and we're going to hurl it at them We're going to drop it on them from a great height. The wrath of the universe will descend upon you for not owning what you know. And, in the original conversation, in one of his more, what would you call it, extravagant, wildly, hysterically, mischievously extravagant conversation moments, he said, let's just go down to the cafeteria and get scraps from yesterday. Scraps from yesterday. And the props people said, seriously? Yes, do it, do it, do it. So they did. And the thing is that something happened. I wasn't there for that one. But they had the scraps. And then I think there was either a delay, or there was a storm, or the power went out, or they had a reshooting thing that they had to do. And so the scene that he was creating, they didn't shoot for several days. And by the time they got to it, and the props people went to get the scraps, they'd gone bad. It was disgusting. So the decision was made that clearly we can't use that. So they tossed that. And Roger said, well, then we'll just make it. We'll make it. And so the devious, crazy, possessed, our props people were divinely possessed, come up with stuff. And Roger would say, yes, yes, can you make it worse? Can you do this? Can you do that? And they would say, yes. And they would go off and come back with astonishing things. And Roger would laugh, and everybody would laugh. And then we would tone it down because, got to be able to duplicate it. You can't blow something up. You have to make it look like we blew it up. So what evolved, what Roger wanted, was something suitably gloppy that would be unpleasant but not dangerous. Feel ugh. Like when you put a barefoot, you're walking along and you accidentally step in wet mud, wet, cool, icky mud, and you go, ugh. He wanted that effect. That's what he wanted. But mud, no. And because the other thing was, you have to be able to clean up the child, get them in another outfit, get them back on the set, because it's it's a production we're doing here. It's not divine retribution one time. So what they came up with, and then the color was just, can we come up with a revolting color? Yes. And they practiced with different things. Ultimately, the idea was, if you do not take ownership, you get retribution. And it would be disgusting, and you wouldn't like it. And that would teach you a lesson. This is what happens when you don't take ownership. And then this very strange thing happened that Roger had not allowed for, hadn't considered. The kids really liked it. It was suitably disgusting enough, but not too much. And the kids thought it was a riot, because as soon as it's happened, they're carried off. Lizzie carries them off, wraps them in a towel, carries them off. They go have a shower. They come back all clean. There's an identical set of clothing. They change. They go back in. She redoes their makeup. They go back into the studio and they carry on. And how the sketches are organized, and what the order is we would do a slamming right before coffee break, or right before lunch, or right at the end of the day. So obviously at the end of the day we had all night, but if we did it right before coffee break, that gave time for the child to come back magically perfect, right? So when all of a sudden something happened, and the kids on the show, because there was a core group of kids who had been on longer, had done more work, had more training, who were therefore able to do stronger performances. They understood the responsibility. So they were the seniors, right? And then the next layer of kids came in, and they were the new kids on the block, and they had to learn all the things that the first layer of kids knew. And gradually we would bring in kids and we would try them out, and some worked and some didn't, and some liked it and some didn't. And there's a weird thing about the camera. Cameras are strange. A camera responds to certain kinds of bone structure and does not respond to other stuff. There's a trick with cameras. Where you look and how you respond to a camera changes a lot of things. So how they're coaching, how they're training, how they remembered it, how comfortable they were. You could see when you watch the show, some of the kids were just naturally good at it. You know, Christine, arguably, in all the years that I've been involved in television, I have never seen anybody so spontaneously natural. It's like she was born in another universe on camera, and she just knew it and got it. And camera was just something that you do. And so she was a natural, and that was great because it gave a good anchor for the show. So here's what happened. It was the more senior kids who got slimed in the beginning. And then gradually, because it was the senior kids who got slimed more often, then it was the junior kids and the new kids who realized that getting slimed was a badge of honor. It was a thing to aspire to. It was a cool thing to be able to say, how many times did you get slimed? How many times? I never got slimed. I only got slimed. I never got slimed. I only got watered. This was the conversation they would have amongst themselves. So, you know, like notches on your belt for achieving things, Super Bowl rings, right? And all of a sudden, it wasn't that I don't know, not taking ownership caused retribution. That was still true. You still got glop dropped on you. It still was pretty disgusting. I mean, there's a thing. I know. I only got it twice. There was a reason I only got it twice. I said, excuse me. Thank you, but no. So you still got the retribution if you didn't take ownership, if you didn't do the homework to know the answer, if you didn't pay attention when it happened to know the answer, if you knew the answer, if you had caused it and you didn't acknowledge that, all of those things, all of those opting out situations, if you opted out, there was retribution. And then that you took your punishment and said, I accept it, became a reward. All by itself. All by itself. Without Roger saying, hey, you know what's going to happen? We should do this, we should do that. All by itself. Kids in the midst of turning point trauma moments in their lives had the opportunity to fight, flee, freeze, hide at a time of fear and uncertainty. When they chose to lean in, when they chose to step up, when they chose to take what was coming with dignity, and by the way, as Freddie said, talk about the bonus. All of a sudden, ownership, 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 reward, reward. Getting slimed suddenly became a badge of honor. Getting slimed suddenly became a thing people would go all the way to Orlando, Florida and buy a ticket and stand in line to go and get slimed on the Nickelodeon set. Why? Because they wanted to be able to say, yeah, yeah, me too. I got the hat. I got slimed. I took it. I stepped up. I asked and I took it. I accepted it. I said, I'm walking here. That's what's going on. That's what happened to slime. And by the way, not, not that it's a convenient Pivotry moment, but oh my God, it's a convenient Pivotry moment. If we, Scott, of course, they liked it. I love it. How cool to hear about it all. Slime was and is the ultimate delimiter between being a fun kid. So the funny thing that happened, again, Roger, there's so many things to say about Roger Price. I'm going to do an episode at some point about him because there's so much to say about him. Amazing. The limit between being a fun kid and being a stuffy adult. Stuffy adult. Oh, for heaven's sakes, look, you've got all that stuff all over you. Kids going. So the idea that something we see as negative has within it is positive is true in everything. In everything. When one of my clients said this awful thing happened, I am immediately, it's really funny, you know, we're on the phone, they can't see me. I'm immediately on high alert. I have my notebook open and I say, tell me what happened. And they tell me the details. And while I'm taking note of the details, what I'm looking for is the opportunity those details are exposing. Something has happened. Where's the nugget in it? Where's the nugget? You know, if you, back in the gold rush, you bought a claim to land and you dug and you blew up to try and find gold hidden. If a disaster comes along and it blows apart what you thought was going to happen, okay, where are the gold nuggets in it? Where is it? Because it's always there. Instead of focusing on, oh my God, what am I going to do? You know, kid gets slimed. Oh God, yeah. Okay, now towel, shower, fresh clothes, wash your hair, poof, 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 back, carry on. It's a metaphor for life. It's a metaphor for what happens when you step in something. What happens when, out of the clear blue of the western sky, an oven, what do? Okay. Immediately fix, deal with, adapt. But then what do you do with that? You have something now you didn't have before. Somebody handed you a thing. What do you do with it? It's an opportunity for your brain to say, what? It's a gift. It may be a disgusting, green, messy, gacky gift, but it's got something in it. It always does. And here's the thing that is so important for us to see and say, you know, she's not wrong. She's not wrong. The important thing to see and say is, I think I've just had an idea. This is how we are different from other creatures, from other living things. We have an awareness of possibility. You know, you watch any of these nature shows and you see an animal doing something, but constantly on the alert. You know that's prey. and you see over there in the corner something watching, that would be predator. Okay. While they're both fixated on their little path, their little trajectory, they're also on high alert, listening, ears moving, tracking the wind and the noises, listening for noises and sounds and smells, because something could be there, something could be there, something could be there, something could be there. Because just because we're focused on this doesn't mean that. That is that's so deep in the subconscious. That's such deep survival mechanism. They only know how they do what they do if they don't have extrapolate, invent something new. That's our thing. We get to do that. We do it how we do it, how we've always done it. Same thing, same subconscious thing. But we come up with original, abstract, creative, out of nowhere something different. That's our special, incredible blessing and gift. So slime, in its intention, was to wake children up, was to give them that moment of, oh, cause, effect. Teach them a lesson. And it did. The beautiful thing about lessons, if we choose, is that we learn something from them. And our knowledge, our ability, our extended capabilities give us some new path, some new way to go, some better way to resolve whatever to our benefit. So I'm fairly certain that in the moment of creating retribution, fairly certain, I haven't actually had the conversation with him, but the next time I do sit down with Roger, I'm going to say, beyond what it's obvious in what you were thinking, what else were you thinking? Because were you thinking anything else? Because the beauty of it, the deliciousness of it, the longevity of it, you know, the reason we are all so proud, the reason I am proud, and I didn't have anything to do with it. I'm just part of the first phalanx of people who was on the inside with it, is that it's ours. Roger created it. Dean developed it. We reacted to it. The crew figured out how to manage it. Lizzie figured out in record time how to reset a child. How long do I have? Okay, I need this and this and this and this. And so we all working together figured out how to navigate it. And we, you know, if you're the first person who navigated something, it's yours, damn it. 1,000 other people can do it. But if you're the first people who navigated it, yeah, okay. It's not yours, it's ours. We built it, we figured it out, we perfected it. So there. That's which is why when people say, "Oh, I'm a Nickelodeon slime," no, no, no. Roger Price. You can't do that on television. CJOH television. The crew and the cast. Slime. Period. It's a very, very cool and important and exciting and funny thing to be proud of. And when other people say, oh, I made slime, good for you. Did you like it? You're welcome. You're welcome. And that, I think, is where I wanted us to be today. Because, it's, I know you can't hear it, but the wind outside sounds like if you could get, I don't know, how big a marshmallow? How big a marshmallow? I don't know. A marshmallow the size of a blimp, right? And if it just kept bumping into buildings, foof, moof, moof, like it wouldn't go crash and it wouldn't go thud. It would be like a muffled. That's what the wind sounds like outside. Because there's all these buildings, right? Oh, sorry, excuse me. It's going on outside, and it's been going on for 24 hours. So I'm hearing this while I'm talking to you, and I'm thinking it's a different kind of slime, and I'll figure out the analogy at some point. What I wanted to say to you today, because here we are, it's spring. Here we are, it is the beginning of things. Stuff coming out of the ground, stuff falling out of the sky, changes in what we wear. I'd almost put away all the winter clothes. Now it is a time for reflection. It is a time for assessment. It is a time for re-evaluation. It is a time to reset. It's the perfect time to talk about something that is about changing your mind. You're allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to reset what are your priorities. You're allowed to say, this used to be the most important thing. I remember those days and I value them, and they are my memories. Today, these are the important things. This today is my priority. I know it will change. And I'm okay with that because it's exciting. I was having a conversation with a very good friend who has struggled with the loss of someone very, very important. And she said, I have to, I can't wait. Sorry. I can't wait. Okay, I'll read that in a second. She said, I have to get out. I make a list of things for myself to do that I really enjoy. And I do them. There are days when I don't feel like it. There are days when I just feel sort of untethered and lost and exhausted. And I look at my list. And I made that list as a promise to me. And so I do them. What are you doing now? Now I'm doing this. Tonight I'm doing that. She was going somewhere last night. I said, Have you heard the weather outside? Have you heard it? She said, I know. I'm going anyway. Can't you go another time? I can. I want to go. If it's really unsafe, I'll change and do something else. But I have booked today something to do for me. And I am not breaking my promise to me. And I thought, wow, there is something pretty incredible. Wow. And the conversation, how have you developed that? It was my job. I was a planner. And I understood, because I had been with the company a long time, that if you took a shortcut and you didn't do this step, the outcome would be very costly down the way. Because if you miss this step, you say, never mind, then that affects the next and the next and the next. And it becomes like an avalanche. Slow, we don't see it. I'm not going to do that to me. I'm not going to punish me that way. And I thought that was the first time I had ever heard somebody talk about self-care as the other side, as the opposite of punishment. If I don't self-care, I am punishing me. Wow. If Roger did not teach his children that there was a price to pay for failure to take responsibility, they would grow up thinking they didn't have to step in and own. They would not make those steps that make you someone people can rely on. As a byproduct, as a present from the universe, laughing, getting slimed is a badge of honor. It is a retribution. It certainly is. And when you step up and into it and you say, I'll take it, you are taking your punishment with dignity. You are owning that you did it. And you belong to a very select club. You belong to a group who said, turning point moment. Do I own or do I flee? The decision when a child on the link set, the decision the child made when the child reading the script knew it was their turn, when the child on camera, knowing that Dean was on the ladder with the bucket full of the glop, the decision the child made to say, I don't know. That's a metaphor. That's a decision to say, bring it. I deserve it. I earned it. Bring it. And they were 10 years old. They were 10 years old. Who does that when they're 10 years old? My kids. Your kids. Our kids. All we have to do is give them the opportunity to reverse the definition of punishment. The definition of punishment is the definition of opportunity. Learn from a mistake. I posted a picture the other day of a guy on a vehicle leaping, vehicles leaping, and 3 of the wheels fell off. And as he's seeing it, and one of I forget which one you are, wrote, "Well, that's going to hurt." So this is what I can. This is what I couldn't read before. Scott says, "I can't wait to go home and slam my children now as a teaching opportunity, of course." Scott, you're not related to Roger, are you, by any chance? Don't sell yourself short. The personality of the show was shaped by you as well. Well, thank you, Kevin. Thank you. So Freddie was saying the water bonus was $50 and the slime bonus was $75. It eventually became that. First of all, it was $25. And the reason Roger did that, reason Roger did that was because it was an inconvenience. The child had to agree to do something kind of disgusting. There's no mistake. There's no mistake. It was disgusting. So he said the children should be paid. It's their show. They should be paid to agree to do something disgusting. But they like it, Roger. I don't care. They have to go through it. They have to go in the middle of the thing, have a shower, change their clothes, have their makeup redone. It's disgusting. It's annoying. It's a delay. So they will be paid. So that, take your punishment. And by the way, here's a bonus check. Just became another funny thing because children don't need to be. Children don't. Roger said, yeah, they do, and they get paid for it too, and they get paid well for it too. Why? Because they're worth it. They deserve it. Just because they're shorter and smaller and younger and haven't been here as long as anybody else doesn't mean they're not worth it. Slime was and is the ultimate delimiter between being a fun kid and being a stuffy adult. In terms of appreciation of its value on the surface, yes, Kevin, you're absolutely right. However, as I've been saying, the real delimiter It separated the people who had had the opportunity to own, the people who had paid their dues and were willing to pay them again, and the people who had not yet had the opportunity to pay their dues. It was that turning point moment. And until you go through it, you can't know what it feels like, and you don't know what the world looks like from the other side. The good news is that we all have our turning point moments. They all come. The important thing, I'll have to use leftovers due to lack of slime. That's charming, Scott. That's charming. So just so that you know, one of the ingredients in slime, and I'm not giving the recipe away. I'm not giving the recipe away. But one of the important ingredients in slime was children's shampoo. And the reason for that, clearly, was to get it out of their hair. And some of the crazy recipes, fake recipes that people have come up with, oh, it had this in it and that in it. So it had to look and feel gloppy. It had to have substance. At the same time, it couldn't be sticky because you couldn't get it out. You couldn't wash it out of the clothes. You couldn't put, somebody said, oh, it had this in it and that in it. Well, no, it didn't, because you couldn't wash it out. It would stick. It would, or it would dye the clothing, or it would. So it had to be convenient as well, because it was just part of the process, you know. So the origin of slime was a decision in a funny, visual, messy, icky way to teach a lesson that kids would see on their level as a good idea, as opposed to from an adult perspective. Like, it's going to get all over the rug. I mean, what are you supposed, not that. And that's what you were talking about, the stuffy adult. However, you know, what do we do? It's going to get on the rug. We'll put down clear plastic, for God's sake. Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. So for every idea that Roger came up with, he would also then randomly and easily, and the props crew and the crew and the kids, we would say, well, why don't we just do this? Well, there you see, there's an idea. Yes, let's do that. So in every instance, not only, as Freddie was saying, were the kids given a suitable recompense, a reward, a payment for going through a discomfort, people who contributed to the show in some way were tangibly rewarded. It wasn't just credits at the end. Thanks. If you wrote a script and the script was used, if you wrote a sketch, you got a writer's credit. You were recognized. If the kids did more work than, if you submitted something and we used the script, you got a writer's credit and you got a fee paid. And because Roger said, why not? Why not? If we benefit, they benefit. That's how it's supposed to work. And that, I think, is the larger lesson in terms of the Pivotry moment for today. Have I gone on too long? Almost. So, sorry. The idea is this. If we do something and there is a good outcome, then all of us should have the opportunity to feel the benefit of that outcome. All of us should have an attaboy, an attagirl. Oh, we got this. We did this. 3 cheers for us. That's how it should be. And if there's good stuff left over, why I get so upset sometimes when people say things about the show and how it's not seen and why it's not seen, and when they discover why it's not seen. And I think of those kids. I think of me too. I think of Les. I think of the writers. I think of Roger. I think of the crew. We committed to something. We contributed to something. We have pride of ownership in something. We were within that moment when it was created. We brought it to creation. We carried it across that threshold. Everyone has celebrated and loved and enjoyed and been changed, transformed forever by it. And would love to see it again. And I agree. I think it should be out there. I think people should be able to see it. I think it should be something that if you loved it and it transformed your lives and you want to give it to your kids and you want them to have their transformation moment, I think you should be able to. I completely agree. Every single fan who writes on our groups, who reaches out to me, why can't we? And I say, I'm with you 100%, 1,000%. There's nothing about it saying, well, da, 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 da. I'm 100% with you. It was magical, and it still is. And it has the power to do things for people. It's it's very, very difficult looking at that costume to say, and I'm proud I picked it, but I am kind of proud I picked it. But here's the thing. The people who can do that aren't willing to do it the right way with honor. And if they're not willing to do it the right way with honor, then that dishonors all of it. And we don't get the full layered magic that the show can deliver. That energy isn't in there if it is delivered in a way that punishes people. That's not what the show was meant to do. That's a Pivotry moment for every single one of you who wishes that they could have this or that or the other. I know you do. And I know why you do. So we are waiting. We are doing what we can. We are waiting for someone to say, you know what, we really need to do this the right way. And so far that hasn't happened. And that is the answer. Why isn't there? Because it's not being done the right way. That's all. So, sorry for the very heavy note at the end. Sometimes, though, a heavy note is a reason for people to hug and say, well, thank you, I didn't know. Thank you, I feel better knowing I still like this. However, knowing is also a good reward. So now you know the origins of slime. Now you know what it was meant to be. Now you understand why it has become. And now you get what it means and how cool it is, what a difference it makes when you say, you know what, I think I'm going to own it. I think I'm going to own it. It's going to be a bit messy. Oh yeah, that's okay. I can have a shower. I can change my clothes. I'm good. And then you get to be among the group that says, and that never gets old. How many times were you slimed, Abby? Twice. Twice. How come only twice? Weren't you a member of the core group? Yeah, see, it was the wig. The wig was acrylic. If you slimed it, you destroyed the wig. There was only the one wig. There's only the one wig, which I found in a store. There's only the one costume, and that's it, which I found in a store, and I didn't want to destroy it because there wasn't another one. I got watered a couple of times. That was okay. I mean, it wasn't okay at the time, but I got watered instead. So, with that all said, with a different attitude about what punishment feels like when it becomes reward, when we look at it and we say, well, just twist it a little bit. Oh, there, look, it's a reward. Perfect. Awesome. That is your Pivotry Moment. Brought to you by a Pivotry Moment out there in the storm. So, weekend is upon us. Things are happening. People are getting their spring cleaning done. They're looking forward to going out, hanging out, and being and doing and whatnot. I would just like to leave you with one thought, and that is that a lot of us are still regrouping and recalibrating and figuring out how to do all those things we used to do. We kind of got out of the habit. We're still feeling a little uncertain. Lots of people who used to come out and say, hey, let's go and do this. They're saying, I don't know, maybe I'll just stay home. Some of the reason they're staying home is they're not sure if they're ready to like it again. Because they feel a little bit like they got blindsided. Some great practical joke and they didn't like it. And who can blame them? So what we're going to do, thee and me, is we're going to keep talking about these videos. We're going to discuss what it means for Pivotry Moments. We're going to figure out how we do that and how we help each other do the good things we deserve the way my friend does. Oh no, I made a list. If I don't do the thing that is good for me that I really love, it's a punishment. And then how many more times will I give it up? And what am I left with? And I thought, that is an amazing woman. That is an amazing human being. Let's write that down and see if we can add it to the list of things that we do. Okay. Have a great time this weekend. Be good to you. You deserve it. Hug your loved ones. Don't slime them with scraps. Well, there is a firing squad, the chains in the prison, and the worst punishment of all, detention. Well, Patrick, yes. Scott, I learned a lot today. Thank you so very much. Scott, you're more than welcome. Tell your friends to come and watch. Tell them that they should subscribe to the YouTube channel so I can grow my tribe. Let's do this together, okay? Help me help you help them. What do you say? Deal? I'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching, you guys.